Again, welcome everyone to the Court Forms Automation webinar presented by uLaw. The agenda for today is to kind of walk you through the value that the court form automation feature brings to the businesses of our clients and for legal professionals that use uLaw, specifically in Ontario as we continue to expand our court forms to other provinces. Walk through that individual roadmap shortly. How automation can streamline one of the most important aspects of your business, and the aspect of the business being the ability to fill out these court forms, whether that's small claims, HTA, POA, family law, criminal, accident benefits. There are various silos of legal professions today that necessitate you as a legal professional to fill out these forms, and I apologize. So we're going to be talking briefly about those different silos and how uLaw manages the automation. A concept of additional parties, it's very important for uLaw to understand the relationship different contacts within your contacts in uLaw have in regards to a matter, and how do these different parties interact and represent as part of their relationship to the matter in which they exist. So we're going to be talking a bit about how do you add contacts or parties into the mix within a matter. And as part of our business process automation, there are other types of forms that we do automate. We're going to be focusing today's session primarily on the court forms, but just to reiterate the business process automation, we do automate retainer letters, client ID verification documents, other forms of documents that necessitate a certain template or repetitive information that we at uLaw may already capture. So we have our forms engine, if you will, which is our proprietary forms engine that allows us to cut down mundane, repetitive form filling, and we're able to automate forms around retainer letters, client ID verification, etc. We also go to the extent, because we are a full-fledged legal accounting and a business accounting software, certain components that touch the financial forms as well, such as Form 9A, which is a form that you probably fill if you're doing electronic fund transfer in Ontario. That is a very common form that our clients, previous to using uLaw, were needed to handwrite every time they did that. So those forms are now automated where we pre-fill as much as information as we know, so you don't have to do that. And obviously, deposit slip is another great example of how we can help you with that automation. But today's focus is going to be on court forms. As it's mentioned in the slide, the most important aspect to our feature is that we also ensure that it's up to date, meaning every time the court forms are changed, we ask for a 2 weeks window from the time that's released before it can be revised and updated within uLaw, but that's something that we do at no extra charge as part of our value prop to our clients. So what are these court forms? What silos do we focus on, and what is the roadmap going forward? Starting with small claims, landlord and tenant, POA or Highway Traffic Act or HTA, which continue on to some of the newer forms that we've added under the silos of family law, criminal, accident benefits, WSIB, tribunal forms. That's one of our newer forms. And we also do accident benefits in terms of SABs as well, which is one of our latest addition to our silo of court form automation. We are going to make the slides and this presentation available after the webinar. We're going to send you a link to this recorded conversation that I have, or presentation rather. And if you wanted to understand a little bit more about the value in terms of time savings that our court form features can provide you, we're happy to welcome you to click our YouTube channel or view that takes you to kind of a comparison between filling forms the old way, which is the manual way of doing it, compared to how you would fill forms using uLaw. And as we continue our roadmap to expand on this court form feature, we're looking for feedback from our user community as well as from the legal community to expand our court forms within Ontario that we have, and we also have it for Newfoundland, but we're also looking to expand within other provinces such as British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, to expand on a very similar concept of being able to automate or pre-fill these court forms with information that we already have through uLaw. Now let me hover away from the presentation because really what I have next is a quick sales slide that if you're not already using uLaw, we welcome you to sign up for a free, no commitment, no hassle 30-day trial, and we'll be able to walk you through the benefits and features of uLaw. So I'm just going to open up my uLaw. Let me bring up my annotation screen. I do have a quick from a webinar participant about not being able to hear me. I do request, I guess he can't hear me now then, to the phone number provided. So we have provided a phone number you can dial into. I apologize. I'm going to just finish up real quick. All right, so now that's been taken care of. Let me show you the new and improved uLaw user interface as we continue to build on this. This is what you would see in a few weeks down the line as we continue to make the UI a little bit more interesting for our clients. What I have as part of my court form automation, one of the fundamental start point of the workflow is being able to start off with a contact or a client. For the purposes of this demo and just to make that, to save time in not being able to add all of this information today, I have created a contact or a client within my test database, and he is Jonathan Tremley. Now, Jonathan, again, as you know, you can add him as a new client by clicking on New Contact and adding him to the clients list. I can give him a title, Mr. Jonathan Tremley. I can even add his date of birth, because there are certain forms that do ask you to fill your client's date of birth, so you are able to click on the More button within the contact of Jonathan and provide his birth date. And yes, we do have his address, and you are able to capture multiple addresses by clicking the Add button, and you can mark one of them as the mailing address. But the mailing address, the address that's been marked as the mailing address, really is the one that is used within our court forms. So I'd like to bring that to your attention. So it's really important that you provide an address for your contact and also mark that contact's address as the mailing address. So let's say we've done that. We've created this contact, Mr. Jonathan. He lives at 81 King Street, or rather, that's his mailing address. And the next step within the workflow would be creating a matter, because these court forms are for a certain purpose and for a certain silo, and it does ask for information with regards to that matter. Now within Jonathan's matter screen, I have prior taken the liberty to create 4 individual matters, all having their own purpose. So I've created 4 matters. I have a criminal law demo matter. I have a demo matter that can walk you through SAB's tribunal forms, or as well as accident benefits. I have another matter that I created that would exclusively focus on the small claims. So assuming that there were 4 different varieties of matters that were dealt with Jonathan being the client, and the 4th one being a family matter between Jonathan and Michelle. So we'll walk you through what that means. These are obviously the titles that we've been provided to these matters. Now, the important tab to focus as part of the court form automation, as you already know, if you're using uLaw, this is your docketing screen. Your matter events is your docketing screen. This is where you're entering your retainers and disbursements. And you would see a fourth tab called the additional parties. As you can see within the additional parties, I have already created or added 5 or 4 different parties to this mix. So let's maybe look at the tribunal accident benefits matter in this case. And what I have here are 4 different parties. So there's a substitute decision maker, and that's Michelle. There's a respondent, that is Boris John Becker. And there's an insurance company in the mix, CC Inc. or insurance company. And there's also a health practitioner. Now, where did these parties come from? These individual names that you see as contact, Michelle, Boris, Inc. name, and Adam Brown, are fundamentally contacts. So if I were to search for Michelle, you see Michelle Tremblay. If I search for the company CC1 Inc., these are fundamentally contacts, and they're created as part of the contacts or the mini CRM within uLaw. And our concept is create those contacts, create those parties or contacts, put in their first name, last name, their address. Now, those contacts or parties are now available for you to be associated within a matter as they pertain to that matter. Okay, so that is kind of the way we've gone behind bringing in the logic of bringing these contacts and parties into the mix. So I could obviously go in, I could change this, let me just change this to the insurance name, insurance company, and I'm going to save it. And you can be rest assured that the name within the matter would automatically change as well. As you can see, it automatically refreshes to show you that it's now CC1 Insurance Company. So you want to keep the contact or the information up to date within your contacts panel, and wherever they are associated as whoever they are associated with in that matter, you are able to replicate that. How do you add these parties to begin with if it's a clean slate is by clicking using the Add Party button. I do want to remind you, because this is a muted conversation or this is a one-way, please use our chat window to add any questions that you may have with regards to this presentation. Our support staff are online and are available to answer your questions. When I click that Add Party button, what you see is a list of types of additional parties that you would come across as a legal professional. So starting with plaintiffs, tenants, all having its own purpose based on the silo of the legal practice that you're focusing on, right from respondents. We also have representative of the opponent. So let's say there's an individual or a lawyer that you come across quite often. You are able to add his or her contact and then associate that individual as the representative of your opponent. What else do we have? So it starts from the plaintiff. It also has an attention. So if there's a specific person to whom it has to be mentioned as an attention, we have that as well. Even goes to the extent of adding health practitioners. So if you have, accident benefit form, as you could see here, Adam Brown is associated as a health practitioner. That's how it's done. Now that you've added these individual contacts as part of the additional parties, all you have to do now is go and generate that form. And to do that, you would go into document generation, as you know. Right at the bottom, you see the forms menu option. And let us look at maybe an accident benefits form, or SABS form, sorry. And then here within the SABS form, you see all of these different forms up to date. And for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to look at OCF1, which is an application for benefits. Document prepared by, so let's say this is a law firm or a legal firm with multiple colleagues with an assisted working, you do have the opportunity to tell us who within your organization created this form as well. And you hit the download button, and essentially what that does is it creates a PDF. And again, different court forms have different formats. There are certain court forms that are in PDF. There are certain court forms that are in Word document, and we manage both. So obviously the first page is more of an information page. If you come down further down, as you can see, the first page where you would fill in the information, it has the claim number. So if you've provided the claim number in your within the information in uLaw, we populate that as well. You're going to see the applicant's information. So you have Jonathan Tremblay, who's obviously the client, and hence automatically becomes the applicant. His information, including his date of birth, and if you actually had his marital status, that would be checked off as well within fact. The address, as you could see within the address of Jonathan Tremblay, you didn't have to handwrite that. All you had to do was associate Jonathan. In this case, it was a natural association, him being an applicant. His address that was marked as the mailing address. The applicant's representative, which is the uLaw user, because the legal professional who's using uLaw is the one who's representing Jonathan. Roger Moore is the name of my account here. And this information gets filled in from the Details tab of uLaw, where you have the first name, last name, the firm name, and a mailing address to be used. And that's exactly the address that gets populated, including the email, within the applicant's representative information. What else do we have? What is the name of the health professional? So uLaw has a smart way in which it scans the form, understands the different positions in which various information silos are required to be filled, and takes those associations with the additional parties and fills it in the appropriate areas as it feels fit. Here's the insurance company name, CC1, one insurance company. And depending on how much of information you've provided within the additional parties, name of the applicant, Michelle Tremblay, because that was, I believe, added as part of the substitute decision maker, assuming that in this case, unfortunately, Jonathan was unable to represent himself, maybe because of an accident. So that's a really good example of a SABS form. And you want to take pretty much the same concept in how we fill forms throughout all of the court forms that we're associated with. I'll probably look at another example. And in this case, let's do an ABS form. Maybe let's do a notice of certificate of service. And you see right away, you've got the file number, you've got the individual's last name, first name. And this is kind of the latest updated form as you see within the website of the court forms. And this is exactly in the same format in which these forms are available to you online. So we've kind of taken those forms and embedded within the uLaw software using the information you've already provided and pre-filling this for you, making it easier for you. Notice of motion, again, and the list goes on. So as you see, within each silo of the forms that we provide these features, you're going to see the list of forms that are associated with those silos. So you do not have to necessarily worry if all the forms are available or not. If it's small claim court, you are going to see a list of all the forms that pertain to small claims. And I'll show you an example of a family law later on, where we also capture forms from different types of justices as well. As you can see, it fills in the address, and this is a PDF, and this is a fillable PDF, by the way. So what you could do is, if you really have to add on to it, you can continue to edit it and add any additional information you see as you feel fit. You can see this is an editable PDF that's available to you. And once you have these forms signed, you probably want to scan a copy of it. And uLaw's feature really allows you to save all of these correspondences or the forms that you've done within the uLaw file. So I could easily take that associated with the particular file number that it's associated with. So it's in this case 834. I can use my Google Drive and potentially drag and drop these forms into the particular matter that's being used. So let me save the notice of motion just to show you an example. And if I were to come into my documents and refresh, now that document, once signed and filed, can also be made available as a chronological historical audit purpose of all the documents that you've generated for this particular file. Okay? So you continue to docket, you continue to put your financial information into it, but here are certain time-saving features such as the court form filling as well as the document management that makes life that much more easier. So moving along, let me take an example of maybe a criminal matter, because what the big difference you're going to see between these different types of matters is essentially how these parties are associated with. So if I look at a criminal law, I only have, let's say, a respondent and a representative of the opponent. And if I go down to a document generation and I look at criminal, and what I'll probably do is I'll probably do a notice of application. And this, by the way, as a PDF is available to you within the machine that you generate this form, and you can obviously take that form and drag and drop it into Google Drive. So you see you have the court file number, the individual's name, and I think that's pretty much, there you go. Date, the address of the respondent, the lawyer himself, and as much as information as you probably feel into the mix. A better example would also be small claims, which has the whole plaintiff nomenclature, if you will, plaintiff and defendant. So it does have a smart way of understanding that if you're representing Jonathan and you do have a defendant in the parties added, that Jonathan is probably a plaintiff that you're representing. So let's go ahead, click on forms, and SCC is what we call as small claims. And this is where we have a list of all the forms that you would see within small claims. So up from 1A to the modified additional parties. The one point to note is, let me do a plaintiff's claim, which is a very popular small claims court form, 7A. If we had a court file number, depending on the situation or wherever the file is in its motion, let's say that we had a court file number. And if you put that in within the matter itself, the next time that you look to generate these court forms, uLaw would automatically pick up the court file as well. As you can see, we've picked up the court file number. And an additional time saver really is to be able to fill out the courthouse address and the information. So really, depending on where you are and the court that you traditionally represent at, you could just type in, so let's say this was in Ottawa, just type in Ottawa and it brings up the Ottawa courthouse and the address, so you can make sure that that's the address that you want to use in that court form. And you're just representing, you're saying whether the client is a plaintiff or a defendant. So I'm just going to leave it as a plaintiff. And again, whether the creditor or debtor, who that is, depending on the situation of the file. And once you've made those changes, all you're going to do is hit the download button. It takes the information that's been stored. It takes Jonathan, it takes John Becker, and the representative of the opponent was Stefan Edberg. And now if you notice within the small claims, and this is a Word document, okay? So here is a plaintiff's claim that's pretty much filled at a click of a button. You have the claim number, which was provided. Here's the address of the courthouse, the Ottawa courthouse, the address of the courthouse. Here's Jonathan Trembley's information, his address, his mailing address rather, his phone number. Even certain forms do ask for your license number, and I will go back into uLaw to show you where you would fill that. You just have to do it one time, and it remembers that LSUC number and then populates it wherever it's appropriate. The important thing to note is it takes obviously the lawyer's information, Roger Moore, his or her information, and here's the defendant's information. So here's Boris John Becker, his address, and obviously if the contact information had his phone number, it would fill that in as well. And here's the representative. So here's Stefan Edberg, his address, and his phone number and his fax number as well. So it does get very granular and detailed. One thing you probably noticed is that Michelle Tremblay was added as a plaintiff, which in this case it understands is an additional party. So if you went back into the form and let's say you wanted to print the 1A additional parties, let me hit download. It's also going to be a Word document. There you go. There you go. That's all the information. It knows exactly that Michelle Tremblay is the only additional party involved. Just like the PDF document that I showed you, this is an editable Word document. So continue typing to kind of fill whatever information is missing, but we kind of give you a good head start. And then you would obviously print this and then file it with the uLaw. And where with the uLaw you would provide a one-time information for the Law Society's LSCC number is within your settings. So within your settings, we have a separate section just for forms, in the Forms tab, and here's your license number. And this is where you provided one time for us. And there are some other nuances to how you want your court form. So for example, it's a general purpose, I think, that people do not want their client's address to be in the form, because it might just end up being the correspondent's address and you don't want the client's address to be that. Sometimes you may want that to be the case. Depending on whatever is your situation, you would mark this as yes or no. Certain forms are really filled well in caps and some others are not, but it's a good habit to leave it in caps because it definitely fills well with the uLaw. And very minimal settings with the uLaw, but this is where you would provide the license number one time, and then that's repurposed right across all of the silos for the court form phone. So we've kind of covered a few areas of practice. I think we did the criminal with the ABS as well as the tribunal, as well as the small claims that we just finished. We do have the landlord and tenant forms as well. And we can do that. I'll probably want to move on to a family matter. Try and make this a little bit more interesting. So what I've tried to do here is, though we're representing, let's say Roger Moore is representing Jonathan Tremblay, I've added Michelle in the mix as both as a spouse as well as a joint retainer. So if I were to generate, let me generate a retainer letter, make this an elaborate one in an MS Word. That way you're able to edit the document. You're going to notice that both Michelle and Jonathan's information would be available in the retainer letter. To just convolute the situation and to show you how we handle certain complex situations, I've added Roger Moore as the representative of Michelle, who's also an applicant, and I've added John Becker in this case as a respondent, and I've added his representative. Now, if at any time you've added a representative or a party rather, and you wanted to change this, you are more than happy to hit action, edit the item, and let's say this was not Stefan Edberg and it was basically Sophia Walker. You can unlock this because it was already done before and then hit save. Now, in doing that, obviously you're going to change who the representative of the opponent is. Let me go back. Make sure that Stefan Edberg is the representative of the opponent. And now, let me hit document generation, forms, family. And what I'm probably going to look at is a general as well as a divorce application. And the reason why its court file number is not filled is we did not provide it here, but you can always provide it as you move along. We provided a court file number. And let me choose a Toronto address. So here's, as you can see, we have the addresses right from Finch Avenue to Queen Street West, the old City Hall. I'm going to be using the application general form, and you can also date it depending on when it was filed, and you would hit the download button so that we generate the document. And there you go. So here's your court file number, the court address, Ontario Court of Justice, the most recent address, and then you have the applicant and the applicant's representative. So here's Mr. Jonathan Tremblay. Obviously, there's a lot more information about him. We went up and added more information to Michelle's contact. Then her address would show up as well, but then you do have her representative because we did associate that Roger was Michelle's representative. I'm going to say I had it here, but nevertheless, and that's the beauty of it. If you've lost it, you can always go back and regenerate it because all the information is just available right here. Go back to family, the Toronto address, court file number. That's why it's important that you fill this up one time within the matter so you do not have to repeat yourself. And it does have a smart way of remembering. If you've already typed it in, it does remember to notify that you said before. Perfect. And then moving along, you have the respondent. And just to the side, you have the lawyer who's representing John Becker. So this was a family law where Michelle and Jonathan were in a legal matter with Boris John Becker or against John Becker. And like all court forms, this is an editable form. Whether it's in a Word document format or if it's a PDF format, what we've tried to accomplish is try to give you that initial push, is to give you those, being able to repopulate the information that we already know. And then if additional information would have to be provided on top of what we already know, you're happy to edit this as you feel fit. To all parties and their lawyers, it also fills in from the actual applicant, lawyer representing him. And I'm going to look at another example, in which case we'll do a Form 8A for family. Coming here, an application for divorce. Maybe this is a Shabbat Lake Courthouse. And there you go. Here's the Form 8A. And here's an important thing. I mean, we looked at being able to fill date of birth, but we go to the extent of using that information to even fill your age. And this is kind of, we're just scratching the surface right here. We're looking to automate a lot more in terms of what we can understand with regards to the association of these parties and the information that we already have. So this was an important feature that I wanted to showcase, that we calculate or we do a bit of calculation, and it's kind of in our roadmap to associate or bring in numbers. So let's say for a divorce matter, we are in our roadmap have that as a feature to be able to bring in numbers that may have to be associated with the divorce. So right now it's just the filling of information as it's pertinent to the area of practice and the court form that you want to pre-fill. But as we continue down this path of innovating within the legal tech space, we're looking to bring in more and more automation into the mix. And as I mentioned, the contacts tab, to reiterate, it's really important that to be able to associate these different contacts, the different parties, if you will, within the matter, the first step really is to be able to provide that information within the contacts. And what you're going to notice is as you continue to update the information and provide more information right here within the contacts, so you can see there is no address. If I were to just add an address, I'm going to say Ottawa 82 Queen Street. I'll mark this as the mailing address because that, again, as I mentioned, is very important. And how do, again, one of the questions was how do you associate these different contacts? I mean, how do we know who is who? That association is obviously done within the matter, not at the contact level. So I want to make sure that you're aware that individuals remain to be people or individuals within our contacts tab, and they are then associated as a relationship. So let's say Michelle is the spouse of Jonathan, then you would add the party, you would bring up the relationship, which is spouse, and you would search for the contact that you have previously stored or saved, bring that individual in, and then associate Michelle as the spouse of Jonathan. With that form information being filled, you're going to notice if I were to redo my application general, and you don't even have to type in, even if you type in a number, if it's part of the address, we'll bring that in. And this is to let you know that as you update your contact panel or your information and regenerate a form, we use the latest information that we have about that contact. So now, before we did not have Michelle's address. Now that we've added the address, it picks up the latest information that it knows from the contact and then populates it accordingly. So it's really important for the court forms to be true and legitimate, that the information that you provide within the contact is pertinent as well. And we're about 15 minutes away from kind of closing out this presentation, I do want to leave some time towards the end of the presentation for Q&A. As this is a Friday afternoon. And I would sincerely appreciate if you could use the chat window to ask any questions that you may have with regards to our court form automation feature. But then wanting to just reiterate what we looked at today, court form filling is as the feedback that we've received from our clientele, is one of the mundane tasks that you can maybe get away with if you like. Being able to reprint that information and retype it is not something fun. So what we've tried to do as a baby step towards automating completely with these court forms is pre-fill these court forms. And again, our forms are pre-filled anywhere from 60 to 100%. So some of the forms, like the small claims court, we actually go to the extent of filling it 100%. There are clients who just take it out, review it one time, and print it and send it away. There are certain forms that needs a little bit more of a human touch to it because there is certain information that we do not necessarily capture within uLaw. That's the only reason why we cannot automate that information. But we do as much as information as we capture that is then repurposed within that court form. So creating a contact, whether it's your client or if there's others associated with that matter, you would store that within your contact. So we created a Jonathan Tremblay as a client. Create a matter for him. That's step 2. Creating a contact, step 1. Creating a matter for that client is step 2. And you would provide a file number, a title associated with an area of practice, which is a configurable list of silos of practice in which you practice. Obviously, the events and disbursements are pertinent to the actual time and money that you've put in that matter. The rates obviously have the different individuals and their rates as it pertains to being used within the dockets. And then the last 2 tabs, and the 4th tab specifically of interest, would be the additional parties, where you associate these contacts that you saved. And I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but I do want to stress the point that it is the contact that you've already saved within uLaw are the ones that are repurposed within the additional parties. The first drop down is obviously the relationship. So whether the individual is the plaintiff, defendant, spouse, employee, employer. As you can see, we have even police officers of some of the accident benefit forms. It does ask for who the police officer is, so on and so forth. If you had a child in the mix, and if there's a different representative for the child, you can mention that too. Because there are certain forms that explicitly want to ask for who are the different representatives, and it may be the case that you have different representatives for different parties involved, and you bring them along and associate them within the additional parties. And then the second drop-down lists every contact in the uLaw database. So alphabetically ordered, it starts with A, but you can use the search feature here and type whoever you like. It brings up that individual's name, and all you have to do is add that into the mix. And you say hit save, and now Adam Sandler is added as an attention into the mix. And once you've done that, then you use the document generation, click on forms, and as you can see from small claims, landlord and tenant, Highway Traffic Act, family, ABS, tribunal, WSIB even, and our latest being family and criminal, the latest forms that are being added. And with that, I would now, again, last step, once you've generated those documents, the additional feature that you have within uLaw today is that you're able to drag and drop those forms, because many times you want to be aware of what documents you created, when were they created, so that you have that chronological audit of the different files. So you could see in my 834, I did already have that notice of motion, and it also ensures that it has the created date and maybe a last modified date. And you are able to drag and drop these different documents, including court forms, into that particular Google Drive folder, and that automatically brings those documents created into uLaw. And you would be able to click on it and be able to open the document as well. Oh, that's probably because I don't have doc in my Google Drive, but if I were to do a PDF, obviously that would open up. So with that, I want to use the last 10 minutes of this presentation to answer any questions that the participants may have today. Again, I want to thank you for participating today, and do register for our upcoming webinars by looking at ulawpractice.com/webinar. We welcome you to try uLaw Practice. We're a Canadian company, and our data is hosted in Canadian soil, and we do legal accounting, practice management, court form automation, and that's pretty much what we do. We make you compliant, and we make legal accounting and practice management easy. I would not say fun, but as much as we can, we make it easy. And we do provide CPDs that are approved by the Law Society of Upper Canada, and we've just begun providing presentations for CPDs that are approved by the Law Society of British Columbia. So please visit us at ulawpractice.com/webinars to register for those CPD sessions. Just as a reminder, today's session is not accredited for CPD hours, so I want to make sure that you're we're starting to see questions come through our support line. Can you show me how to save documents in various again? Okay. I think the question is around how do I save the court form document and then save it within that matter. Question. So let me go back to uLaw for that. So I'm here. I go into my matter. So what we do with uLaw is when anytime you generate a document, it's pushed to that local computer. But one of the new features in uLaw allows you to integrate uLaw with Google Drive. First step to do that is go into your settings, and within Matter, you have this option of Matter documents. By default, this would be set to none, but today you are able to click Google Drive. The fact that I'm already logged into Google Drive is that's what it's taking. It's picking up my company Gmail account. But if I were to sign out and then associate this as Google Drive, and when I go into my matter, I would find this Documents tab. So for every matter that has a file or a file number, you click on Documents and you hit refresh. It connects with the Gmail account that is associated with your browser. So if you're already into Gmail, as you can see, I click on my uLaw Gmail account. And what we do is we take this file number, Jerry, is JT, and take this file number, which is a unique number, and within Google Drive, we create a folder and a subfolder. So we create uLaw Practice, and under which we create another folder called Matter, within which we create a folder which has the unique file number associated with it. So in this case, this would be the 510834. There you see, 510834. Now this is connected. So the Google Drive folder JT 510834 and your actual uLaw matter are connected. And as you generate court forms or other forms, let's say you do a client ID verification, you could either drag and drop these forms into that particular folder, or let's say you have to open them up, sign them, scan them, Then once you've scanned this, you can download it into that Google Drive folder as well. So you can do it two ways. You can drag and drop it, or you can open it, sign it, and download it as well. Either ways, once you come back into uLaw, you would now see those two documents associated with it. And it also tells you the type of document that it is. If it's a PDF, MS Word, and when you click on it, it actually opens up that document in Google Drive. So I hope that answered that question. I have another question which talks about, we showed additional parties, so I think maybe you joined a bit late, but I'll try and show that again as well. Within each matter, you have this concept of the additional parties tab, and how you add parties to this file in relationship to this matter is by using the add party. And the first drop down is just a relationship. You could use, maybe there's a landlord, maybe Adam Sandler is the landlord here. But once you've associated Adam Sandler as, and you can delete these associations if you don't see them fit. So let's say this was a landlord and tenant case, and you didn't see the need for all of these, you are able to delete them. So you could just leave this as landlord, remove these insurance companies, or you could just generate the form, and it would have the same effect. And then you go ahead, click on document generation, forms, and generate those forms. All your landlord and tenant forms. Okay. I'm going to have the chat line open for another 2 more minutes before we call it a wrap. Another question is, how do I do the trial for uLawPractice? That's a good question. Definitely like to answer that. When you go into our website, which is ulawpractice.com, as you can see, you could sign up for free 30-day trial right here, or you can click on the sign up free 30-day trial. We just ask you for some basic information, and then when you hit register, we create your account, we provide you with the Playground account, and we also schedule you for an onboarding session to help you through the process of using uLaw. And before the end of the 30-day trial, we reach out to you to see if we've done well to earn your business. And if we've done well, then we activate your account. Okay, I'll probably leave it for another 2 more minutes before I can close the session. And as just a gentle reminder, as I mentioned early on, this webinar is not approved for any CPD credits, but it's still one of those sessions that we provide as a mix. Our upcoming CPD sessions are available on our website, ulawpractice.com/webinars. We will send to all registered parties a copy of this recorded session of the court forms automation. And we want to thank you for your time today and hope you have a fantastic weekend ahead. Thank you.